So 2025 is very likely to be a crazy year for mining, but why exactly is that? Well, I sat down with fellow mining content creator, the Hobbyist Miner, to discuss our personal predictions for stuff like mining profitability and what mining hardware we think will be coming out and more. But before getting into that, just keep in mind that these are all just kind of predictions made for fun. We don't have any insider information or anything along those lines. So that is what's coming up of this quick word from our sponsor. Coin Mining Central, which is an online store for ASIC miners with an over 6-year track record of overwhelmingly positive customer reviews. They have all the latest and most profitable miners, from silent home miners to full-size ASICs. They can even provide immersion cooling systems and offer great bulk pricing on ASICs. And with that in mind, I'm currently really interested in the AL2 Lite or AL3 for lithium mining, where the AL2 Lite is more suitable for home mining as it's silent and works on 120 volts, but the AL3 is more powerful and because of that offers better value for money. Based in the UK, Coin Mining Central prioritizes great customer support, strict personal detail protection, and free worldwide shipping on all miners with no additional payment fees at checkout. You can also utilize their loyalty and referral programs to save on your next purchase. Plus, use my link down in the video description and code 𝗧 at checkout for a roughly $130 discount on every miner in your order priced over £1,000. So check out that link below together with the code to save on your purchase. All right, I'm here with the Hobbyist Miner. Welcome, thanks for joining me. His channel will be linked down in the video description and in the pinned comment as well, I'm sure. But let's get into some predictions for mining in 2025, starting with the hardware side of things and kind of what hardware we think will be coming out and how that will be affecting the mining landscape and profitability and all of that. So starting with GPU mining, and I'm going to take the lead on this one. I know that's a little rude since you're the guest here on my channel, but I just want to talk about mainly two different topics here in terms of GPUs for mining in 2025. First one obviously being that Nvidia is launching a new generation of their gaming GPUs, the RTX 5000 series. And I'm gonna go out on a limb here, just kind of looking at the sort of specs that we kind of have access to at this point. Obviously at the point of recording this, nothing is released yet, but it looks like they will probably be very good for mining. However, I think they're not going to be viable for mining because I think they are just straight up going to be too expensive. I think if we're going to be looking at, 5090s priced over $2,000 per card, then that kind of pricing is also going to trickle down even into the lower tier cards that probably kind of will mimic the 4000 series, where the lower tier ones will be very heavily nerfed on stuff like the memory bit bus and stuff like that. So yeah, the 4000 series was good on like the core algos. The problem there is all the coins that use core algo, core centric algorithms will go to ASICs eventually. So what we want is GPUs with great memory calculating capacities, right? And those seem to only be the very high end in NVIDIA series, and we're just not getting those for good prices at the moment. Do you have anything to add about sort of NVIDIA cards?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you're right. I mean, a lot of people have skipped the 4000 series and are looking at the 5000 series. I think the challenge is the bar is becoming higher and higher to compete. And so when we look at things like we look at right now, like a lot of people have targets on the 5090. The hard part is the barrier to entry. Your everyday miner, home miner with one rig isn't going to go spend $2,000+ on a graphics card. We've seen that absolutely with the 4090s as well. Even right now, the 4090 is still very expensive. Now, are they profitable? Yeah, sure, absolutely. I mean, there's a little bit of that profitability there, but I think the hard part is spending that type of capital for such an unknown. This isn't Ethereum. It isn't like you got those guaranteed profits where you buy it today and a week from now you're still making really good money. Your ROI is well under a year. There's just too much unknown with kind of GPU mining right now, and putting that type of capital into it, Unfortunately, it's tough. I was listening to a great podcast from Saturday Night Live from the guys from Misfit Mining, and they were really talking about GPU mining. And at the end of the day, it all comes down to profitability, and it just doesn't exist anymore. So to take that step next year, add a 5090 or something along that line, it's going to be too difficult for your everyday GPU miner.
Yeah, and I think along those lines, what I have been more interested in recently is actually Intel's new kind of lineup, because they just launched that kind of like budget-oriented card, which actually packs a pretty heavy punch on the gaming side of things. So could this be the new era where we're actually all going to be kind of switching over to mining with Intel cards? I guess that's kind of something that remains to be seen at this point. However, what I will say is I do look forward to, in this coming year 2025, I look forward to making more GPU content, and I'm kind of excited for going into it now. I'm excited for GPU mining, maybe not for the reason of like, oh, we're going to be making loads of money again, and we're going to be talking about that a little later in this video, just in terms of like profitability for GPU mining and predictions there. But I think there's going to be a lot of fun things going on with these new generations of GPUs coming out, and yeah, I'm just excited to like make content about that, doing research, testing cards and all of that stuff. I don't know if you're going to be focusing on some GPU mining content this year as well, or kind of where your head is at with that.
Yeah, I mean, with special projects that come out that kind of pull my interest, definitely. I mean, I do have one 8-card GPU rig that I do want to get built here with 𝗥𝗘𝗖𝗢𝗠s that I have, and I'm like interested in doing that. But in 2025, GPU mining is totally a spec play. Unfortunately, and I know this is going to ruffle some feathers here, but pairing up GPU mining and profitability is going to be very difficult. That's no longer the case, and I think that's a really hard pill to swallow for a lot of our community. And I think adapting and changing, I think, is important. A lot of people I know with GPU rigs have downsized, still have a few, and they're still spec mining, but have really downsized. Having 50, 60, 70 GPUs just doesn't make sense anymore when you're making cents a day. So yeah, I am absolutely interested in GPU mining content in 2025. It's just going to be special case for sure.
Yeah. And I think with that, let's move on to predictions about ASIC hardware instead, because obviously that is a field that looks like it has no intention of slowing down in terms of new innovation and all of that. And I figured let's break it down by manufacturer, starting with Bitmain and what we think will be going on with Bitmain. I'm going to start with my own predictions for them, which is in terms of like Bitcoin and script miners. So, Bitcoin and Doge essentially. I don't think we're going to be seeing any sort of generational leaps from Bitmain in 2025. We just had the S21 sort of generation launch. I don't think they are going to be, stepping into like an S23 generation in 2025. Same with, for the script miners, they just did their L9. I wouldn't, predict that they would release like an L11 line this year. There might be like little bumps like L9 Plus or L9 Pro or something like that. And obviously with their Bitcoin miners, they release new iterations with slight bumps and efficiency tweaks and all of that like constantly. And S21P Pro Plus is probably going to be coming out and, all of that. But I don't think we're going to see generational leaps for those coins. However, I do think there is a chance for some of the altcoin ASICs that we might see generational leaps. And I'm looking at, miners for coins like Kadena and Nervos network, because the K7 there for CKB and the KA3 for Kadena, they kind of have been out for a while, and it wouldn't be super surprising to me if, let's say, for example, that Kadena has this price bump, a massive pump, and go like, you know, does a 10x from here or something. Like, I'm not financial advice. I'm not saying that's gonna happen. I'm just speaking hypothetically here. It wouldn't be surprising if at that same point Bitmain goes, and by the way, we have a new generation miner for this, and it's making $300 a day, and we're taking pre-orders. You know, like,
yeah,
'cause
right?
that's such a Bitmain move to do. Is like, maybe they're already sitting on these, you know, new generation miners. They're just waiting for that price pump, and that's when they're like taking the pre-orders. They mine throughout the price pump on them, you know, themselves, and then, you know, ship them out to the people who pre-ordered once the profitability has tanked. I'm not, you know, saying that's gonna happen, but it's kind of has happened before with Bitmain, allegedly, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think Bitmain, I'm hoping that we do not get any more script miners. The L9 itself, you know, is new, is young. We saw the L7, you know, come out in November 2021. So we had a nice generational gap there. Got a few years of mining with it, and even the L7 now is still profitable. So I'm hoping the L9, you know, I'm hoping Bitmain doesn't get money hungry and is like, oh, let's just release the L11 a few months later. Like, that would be terrible, to be honest with you. That being said, you never know with Bitmain. They kind of, you know, they're always chasing the money here. So we'll have to see. There's been rumors on some really big 𝗧𝗲 miners, 95 terahash and higher, coming out from Bitmain. I personally think they're just kind of holding back on that until 𝗧𝗲 gets this mysterious pump up to 20 cents, and then they drop it and kind of crush that network even more. I do like the kind of altcoin discussion. I'd like to see that significantly more than more Bitcoin miners. They really came to the table over the bear market with a number of Bitcoin miners releasing every few months, it felt like. So, as you said, we got the pluses and the XPs and whatever else you want to add to the mix there. And right now, the S21 XP 270 terahash is still very competitive, but I'm definitely seeing Bitmain pivoting towards hydro a lot and more enterprise mining. So we'll definitely have to see what other manufacturers bring to the table.
Yeah, because in the end, that's kind of the type of Bitcoin mining that makes any sense, really. You know, you're not going to be buying this air-cooled 3,000 watt miner for mining at residential electric. You're just not, you know. It's not going to ROI, most likely. But for altcoin miners, it's a different story, right? But I think with that, should we move on to talking about IceRiver?
Sure, absolutely.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, IceRiver, go for it. You want to take IceRiver first?
I mean, I have some thoughts written down, but if you want to take the lead,
Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
So, it wouldn't be too surprising that IceRiver might come out with miners for a new coin or two this year, as in coins they haven't made miners for before, because when they first came out, they were just 𝗧𝗲 ASICs, but then last year we saw them not only dip their toe into Alephium ASICs, but also Radiant ASICs, which I think a lot of people forget because it was it was announced and hyped for a week, but then people just kind of stopped talking about it. And I think starting with that, you know, it might not be that big a surprise if they come out with some ASICs for a couple of new coins. And it also seems that they tend to focus on coins where there aren't any ASICs for that coin yet. So maybe this is when we get, I don't know, a 𝗥𝗧 ASIC, or who knows, right? Who knows which coins they might. I know there has been some talking about kind of these hybrid FPGA things for 𝗥𝗧 and stuff like that, but possibly, right? And let me see here what I thought as well. Oh yes, speaking of Radiant, depending on like if Radiant mining actually does anything in terms of profitability, if, you know, Radiant's coin price goes up enough to kind of make the daily emissions make sense, I think we could see a large scale Radiant ASIC from IceRiver, because I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's still only the little box miner, the RX0 from IceRiver for Radiant. I don't think they have a big one, right? So I think that would be kind of low-hanging fruit for them if, you know, it would make sense. Obviously, they don't think it makes sense at this point, which is why they're not doing it. So that might be something coming out. And then I think it's about a 50-50 chance if they're gonna have like a generational leap in terms of efficiency for their line of 𝗧 and lithium ASICs. I think there's a bigger shot for it happening on 𝗧, just because how aggressive the emission schedule is there and kind of how that all plays into how aggressive, you know, the manufacturers are with releasing, you know, more efficient hardware. I think less so for a lithium, but again, 50-50 shot, I would say.
Yeah, I know IceRiver's kind of been a little bit quiet, you know, for a little while now. You know, they were kind of releasing things left and right. You know, the Radiant miners were an awesome release, as well as a lithium. I mean, the AL2 Lite has been in high demand, actually. A lot of people interested in that. Can't really afford the AL3, but the AL3, I'm actually looking at buying another one here. I'm waiting for my first one to come in, looking to buy another one as well. So I think there's definitely a lot of interest there. Very curious on where IceRiver goes from here, though, just based off of the fact of, you know, they're kind of always a little one step ahead. You know, they're kind of like one step ahead on some of these altcoins. They kind of read it out with Radiant, read it out with lithium. 𝗧, I'm kind of hoping no one makes any more 𝗧 miners, but we all know that's probably not true. So we'll definitely have to see.
Yeah, I think with 𝗧 especially, it's just so driven by profitability, and because of the, you know, how aggressively emissions are cut, that just kind of dictates how the miners are being launched and announced and priced. The next topic here for ASIC manufacturers is 𝗧 and 𝗦𝗡𝗚, and the only note I have there is new gen ET hash miners coming out, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, it's very 𝗧 miner is a very unique one because they're still pushing their X16Q, which is several years old now. It's old technology. Now, granted, it has been efficient through the bear market. I've been running mine on Octaspace, and that's been awesome. And 𝗦𝗡𝗚's kind of, we got some teasers, not necessarily from 𝗦𝗡𝗚, but resellers have kind of leaked these like crazy efficient home miners, which I'm thrilled to see, because I do think ETC hash has been great for home miners, giving us the ability to utilize different platforms to stack different crypto. I don't know a lot of people that are chasing Ethereum Classic directly, but 𝗦𝗡𝗚 really surprised with that. 𝗧 miner really only has their like big boy X44P coming out that they've been talking about for, I feel like, a few years now, but that doesn't really apply to home miners. So I'm really interested to see what 𝗦𝗡𝗚 does with those.
Yeah, but 𝗧 miner also has an X44Q coming out, which would be like the X16Q, but for more.
Who knows when? Who knows when?
Yeah, yeah. And I guess that is the issue, because I don't know if you remember, but like a while back, I scoured through 𝗧 miners Twitter, and I found this thing where they were like, hey, you know, just so you know, we're going to be releasing the X44 miners before the end of year 2024, which was a tweet from like March or something. So I just replied to that, or like quote tweeted or something, and I said, hey, 𝗧 miners, is this still true? You know, is it coming out next week? And obviously they replied saying like, no, it will be next year or whatever they said. But I just want to touch on why I wrote down that it's exciting, and that's just because I think ET hash miners offer such a great opportunity in that like so many coins use this algorithm, and it's such a flexible algo in a way where lots of new coins come out. You can kind of jump on those new coins and spec mine with it, but you can also, there's also plenty of kind of high daily emission coins that are mineable with, on the ET hash algorithm, you know, not just Ethereum Classic, but Ethereum proof of work, the ETH-W one, like that puts out a good amount of change each day, as well as Octaspace and also other coins kind of on the same algorithm there. And it's just one of those where I don't see, you know, with these very core centric algorithms, like, you know, the one that 𝗧 has, it seems like the manufacturers are more able to just like churn out like generational leaps in efficiency, you know, like 6 months apart, you know? Whereas it feels like with very memory intensive algorithms like ET-hash and ETC-hash, which, you know, these new alleged, or not alleged, I guess they are kind of announced, Apollo and Jazz miners, it seems to be take much longer to actually develop chips that are like generationally like better than the previous gen chips were. I don't know if, you know, mem heavy algorithms are just more difficult to develop chips for, but that just seems to be the case. And also, none of the very like big manufacturers of ASICs seem to be very good at the mem heavy algorithms, like your Bitmain, like the E9 Pro isn't really, like that's their best attempt at it, and that's not really competitive. As well as like IB-Link, 𝗬𝗧𝗦𝗧, IceRiver, none of them have ET-hash miners, which means they are unique in a way, and that is why I like ETH-hash miners. But with that said, do you want to talk about Goldshell, or should we just move on?
Goldshell's been unique for sure. You know, we kind of saw them pumping out anything and everything under the sun, always overpriced. I mean, we really saw it during the bear market, completely overpriced. And a lot of those miners making not even $1. What was it? The one Alethea miners, like abysmal now, and it was thousands of dollars throughout the entire bear market. So a lot of us, I think, that have been in the scene for some time really lost interest and trust with Goldshell. You know, high-priced miners, outdated technology, and I think we really didn't see anything special until we started to get into some of their script miners more recently. And I did get my hands on the DG Max and was actually really surprised by that. You know, them coming out with a miner that was still very profitable, does like $20 to $25 a day, is still really, really good. But that's also only because script mining is in a really good spot right now with the price of Doge. So I don't know if they stay that route, and that's kind of the plan. They did come out with the AL Max, and that's doing really well. So like, it seems like they at least can, these kind of I mean, they're full size ASICs. They're using 3,400 watts, but from the performance side, they're not as big as your IceRiver or your Bitmains out there. It just seems like they could compete with some of those bigger ones. The challenge is the small box miners that they've come out with over the last year just unfortunately don't compete very well anymore.
Yeah, I've kind of have this thought about Goldshell, which is like they tend to come out with big, you know, full-size ASIC miners, and in that realm, I'm talking about more recently now. It seems they are more just trying to compete on price, which is really strange to say about Goldshell, because they have such a reputation of being overpriced, right? But with their, you know, DG Max, as a good example of that is, hey, they were like, hey, we know this thing cannot compete in terms of efficiency or overall hash rate with stuff like the L9 or, you know, even the L7, I believe, right? Yeah. But what we can do is we can price it at like $2,000 or whatever it's priced at. And then, you know, so then like, you know, it's not going to be efficient, but at today's, you know, super increased profitability for Doge mining, it has the best ROI because you're getting very cheap hash rate, and all Doge hash rate is profitable now almost, right? And I think it's like either that, or on the other side of the pendulum, they offer these like very, very, very convenient miners, the little box miners that are pretty silent, don't pull a lot of power, look nice. They're obviously targeting home miners, but then they're overcharging for that convenience. And I feel like that's kind of this like these two sides of the coin for Goldshell. And I don't think they're gonna be changing that strategy up anytime soon. They might be coming out with some, you know, full-size ASICs for coins where there are already very much better ASICs, but they might actually be competitively priced. And in that, and you know, same going along with that, they might come out with more box miners, they most likely are, and they're gonna be overpriced for what they are. That's kind of where
I'm glad you brought up price actually there with Goldshell's newer, larger miners, because you're absolutely right. I mean, I was very shocked to see that we're getting a full-size ASIC at a gold shell making $25 a day on a popular algorithm for $2,000 to $3,000. It's like, wait, did they learn their lesson on pricing? Or like, what are we doing here? I was very, very surprised by that. And the same thing with the AL Max. It just was very shocking to me coming from this gold shell that we knew during the bear market where the prices were just insane. So yeah, I think that's a really good point to bring up.
And then just to wrap up on ASIC miners, I know we've been talking about that for a long time. Just other manufacturer miscellaneous here, right? I think, if we have certain coins pump now throughout, 2025, I think it wouldn't be surprising to see random ASIC releases by random manufacturers. I'm gonna bring up an example of what I mean is like when Doge pumped now just recently, out of nowhere, iBillink announced this Doge miner, which was like terrible in terms of efficiency. But they've probably been sitting on it for like 4 years or something. No, maybe not 4 years, but like a long time. Yep. And you slowly watched it become less and less and less competitive. But then when Doge finally pumped, they're like, oh my God, this old miner is actually profitable now. Announce it, release it, price it competitively, let's just get rid of this. And I think that is likely to happen for other miners as well, or other coins as well, and other manufacturers. So random little, ASICs announced here and there that we might not expect. I also expect there to be not a lot, but quite a few new manufacturers popping up. Like we've already seen these Flu miners and Volk miners and whatever that kind of capitalize on like, hey, this coin is pumping, let's release a miner for it, create a company real quick. That's something I also kind of am predicting we'll see more of in 2025.
Yeah, I think it was Dragon Ball actually just announced last week like a Nexa miner now. So like it's gonna like come out and blow things out of the water. So I think we have these new contenders stepping into the scene for sure, which I'm thrilled to see. We didn't really spend much time on Volk, but I will say that Volk miner did announce some home script miners that were super profitable. So I'm thrilled to see more competition in the scene, new companies coming out, new chips coming out. I think it's good overall. I think it's really going to force some of these other manufacturers to either catch up or step aside.
Yeah, 100%. And I think with that, let's finally move on from talking about hardware and just kind of talking about our predictions for mining profitability for 2025 and kind of how we think the market will be moving. Obviously, everyone is kind of predicting that 2025 is going to be a bull market year for crypto. Looking at things like the 4-year cycle, but also looking at actual things that are going on with, in your country, they have a very pro-crypto government coming into place now soon, and just a lot of things. Your president-elect vouching to purchase 1 million Bitcoin as a reserve thing, and all of that that's going on. There's obviously a lot of like pro-crypto things going on, which is why people think, like 4-year cycle is going to play out again, and it's going to be crazy this time. So I don't think either of us have any objection to that. I think both of us are also under the assumption that we will see a good year for crypto in 2025. Again, not financial advice, we're kind of just predicting for fun here. But with that potential bull market coming up, how do we think that is actually going to be affecting mining profitability? And again, if you don't mind, I want to take the lead here because I have some thoughts about this. Go for it. And I want to start with GPU mining, because my kind of view of that is we're not going to get another 2021, with Ethereum. It's not going to be these things where like GPUs are just money printers. I think we're going to have a better year in 2025 than we have had, in like 2023, 2024 in terms of GPU mining profitability. But I don't think it's going to be crazy like it has been before during previous bull markets. I think more likely it's going to be like, it's going to be a little bit profitable, and we're going to see a lot of like coin pumps, like random coin pumps, like all of a sudden a GPU mineable coin pumps like 20x and is like way high for like a week. And then it's gonna be like, whoa, this coin is super profitable to mine for like 2 weeks before net hash kind of evens out or the coin crashes down in price again. And I think we're gonna see a lot of that. And I've spoken about this in a couple of videos before, but I think the name of the game, if you are fully committed to GPU mining during this cycle, is going to be, well, there are different strategies, but I think a strategy you could implement is just like use it to stack coins and be okay with it being barely profitable, if not even maybe a little bit unprofitable, but still kind of, you know, taking like exchange fees in mind, it's still a little bit more advantageous than just buying crypto maybe for you, and just keep stacking, be okay with it being barely profitable, and then just wait for the pump and sell it all there. Or as you and I have spoken about before too, is spec mining with GPU mining. So that is kind of what I'm thinking in terms of GPU mining for, you know, 2025. A little bit more profitable as kind of general market moves up a little bit, but not crazy like we saw during Ethereum days. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think we're going to see a nice pump here January, February, just based off of historical data that we've seen with bull runs, as well as a new administration coming in for the US, very pro crypto. We're seeing a lot of Donald Trump's cabinet coming in that is very interested in crypto. So that all is, you know, the stars are starting to align, which I think is fantastic. Things are starting to look good. So I think that's going to give us a great rebound from where we had a small dip here in December. Outside of that, looking at profitability moving forward, I think GPU mining is going to stay the same. I don't see it changing. There's no great outlier coin that is going to have tons of projects on it with tons of transactions that's going to make GPU mining, you know, great again like it was last bull run. I think it's going to remain a speculative play. I think most of our GPU miner friends are downsizing as well, 1 or 2 rigs, and that's it. I do think that those people that are home miners, I think, you know, spec mining with GPUs and buying the coin, buying other coins, like you had mentioned, I think is going to be the right play. There's a lot of really good home box miners coming out, especially script miners, which I think will be a good step. Ethereum Classic miners we talked about. On the flip side with ASICs, I think getting in first is going to still remain the same. Buying these models right away, getting in on first batch, taking advantage. But the one thing you had mentioned about just kind of like these quick kind of price pumps, I think we need to be more active, and I think our audience is seeing it on taking profits faster. Like it is not sitting on these things long. Take your profits quicker, because I think the scene is moving even faster now. And I think this bull run, it's going to continue. I think we hear a lot from people where it's like, oh, I was holding all this and I never took profits. Well, why? Well, I always thought it could go higher. And it's like, if it's profitable right now, take those profits where you can. And I think that's going to be a pattern that we see throughout the rest of this bull run.
Yeah, I think for this bull run, just kind of taking a step here is like in terms of if we're gonna be talking about just like what profitability for mining will look like this I said bull run, but I just mean in general for the next year of 2025. I think if you're like if you're a profit head essentially, I think it's gonna be ASICs. I think this time it's gonna be ASICs that will be the big kind of profit makers in terms of mining. And I think one big play that, you know, it's very easy to look right now and be like, oh, Dogecoin miners are so profitable, I'm gonna buy these Dogecoin miners. And you could, and potentially ROI even at these like inflated prices for Dogecoin miners that we're seeing right now. But I think, you know, obviously the play there was to buy the Dogecoin miners a year ago, or even 3 months ago, where, hey, the market hadn't moved yet for Dogecoin and the miners were pretty cheap. So I think if you want to be like the most, like implementing a proven strategy, you have to be looking at, okay, well, what is the next coin that will be doing something like that? What's the next ASIC where like it's cheap now, but maybe in a month, these will go for twice, 3 times the price because the coin that they mine has mooned. And we've kind of recently seen that a little bit with Alephium, because I remember the AL2 lights were down like almost like down to like $600, and I think now they go for
really
1,000. Yeah, they were really cheap, and I think I was even saying in my videos there like, hey, these are looking pretty good right now. And then now, not to toot my own horn, because that's, you know, I'm not trying to do that, but like, hey, they were a pretty good buy, and they're already almost twice what they were, because they are more profitable. And that's just kind of just to say again that like, look for the ASICs that now kind of look really meh, but that aren't too old to the point where like it's very likely that there's like going to be a generational leap in like a month in terms of just a new ASIC coming out for that algorithm. That's kind of what I'm looking at in terms of ASIC profitability, because I think, you know, with the overall market moving up, it's, you know, more of the like top coins move up and stay up for longer than tiny little altcoins, which is usually what's more prone to like GPU mining and stuff. It's more these tiny little altcoins that do these massive spikes, and that's when we see the high profitability. However, like the kind of upper end of market cap coins, you know, a lot of them are proof of stake, but also a lot of them are ASIC mineable, and they move up more and for longer, or maybe not more, but they move up and stay up for a lot longer, which is why I think for this 2025, we're gonna see more kind of like consistently high profitability for ASIC miners. And I think the play is to just look like, okay, what miners haven't had those coins kind of catch up yet and have the potential to do so.
Yep, definitely taking some gambles and risks on jumping in on some of those, as you talked about, on some of those projects where, you know, you kind of want to jump ahead. Like you kind of want to pick projects that aren't as profitable but have potential, because those are the ones where, you know, you love to buy in on early. You talked about when the one AL box was much cheaper, and then, you know, the price reflected it, and then people get upset because they didn't buy it when it was cheaper, but it wasn't as profitable then. So yeah, it's definitely good. I honestly think this bull run is going to be much more difficult than the last one. Last one, things were very defined for people. You bought these miners, you bought these GPUs, you mine this, and it was easy. That is no longer the case. And I think that is what really frustrates our community, is that it's very undefined, and that it is a lot more of a gamble, and there's a lot more risk now because of how volatile things are. Not only with new ASIC manufacturers coming out every day with different miners, but also just how volatile crypto is right now. We're seeing some massive swings. I mean, we just saw a massive swing the other week with Bitcoin dropping down pretty significantly in a short-term time period, but really affected all the altcoins overall. So I think this bull run is definitely going to be more challenging.
Yeah, I definitely think you're correct in like this might be a little bit of a more difficult to navigate, you know, potential bull market for miners. However, I think it has just as big a potential to have you make some really, really great and profitable moves, if not even more so than our previous bull market in like 2021, just because of how much more money seemed to be pouring into the overall crypto market now compared to the previous bull market. And more money pouring in obviously means that if you are able to do some pretty, you know, clever plays, you could be rewarded pretty heavily. Hobbyist, thank you so much for joining me for this discussion. Obviously, we've been talking all about our predictions for 2025. But you and I also have a video on our biggest lessons that we've been learning during this year in 2024. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that up on the screen there for people to click on, and I'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching.